Talking with Lars, Tiffany, and Lars, I have a very specific. We always start these interviews with one question. In 2016, you take your last year at Brown. You take your Brown team to a Final Four, and then you have the opportunity to go to Virginia and replace the guy you played for in high school. And I guess the easiest question to start with is it a bittersweet moment? Was he the first guy to call you? Kind of walk us through that entire transaction, because it had to be a roller coaster for you from an emotional standpoint.
What's amazing is, for me about it was following Dom Starsia, the man who gave me my opportunity to play college lacrosse. He came and recruited me out of Lafayette High School my senior year. I had an incredible 4-year experience being part of this incredible institution, these great people, but really this man, like Dom Starsia, to play for Dom is to have a second father in your life, someone who really, really cares about people. He takes care of people first. Dom focuses on that. He's never going to be accused of doing too much X's and O's and getting caught up in the minutia of the coaching business, but he actually focuses on what's more important. And so here I've had this incredible role model for a coach that probably was the biggest reason I became a coach. You graduate from Brown University, you graduate from any college, you may be a little bit more like, I can go change the world. Does the world really need another lacrosse coach? Probably not. Let's go do something else. But there was always something like gnawing at me, like, well, Dom had such a big impact on so many of us and made us better people. Maybe there is some value in guiding and coaching young people. And it just really sort of, I fought it for a little while. And then when I succumbed to it, I found this beautiful opportunity to be a coach and to not be hesitant about it and to feel like I can really make some good if my mission is to make difference makers, to make leaders, and as opposed to just win games at all costs. And so I've been incredibly fortunate to have Dom as this role model my whole life, as a mentor. As I became a coach, I would always call Dom. So then when his job opens up in 2016, as he departs University of Virginia, and to step into his shoes, it definitely made me pause for a few times, like pinch myself. Is this really happening? Those are huge shoes to fill. And, but to speak more of the greatness of Dom, even though he'd been, unceremoniously let go, he offered up his house to me as I made the transition of moving down here. I lived in Dom Starsia's house. Our opening team meeting, which Dom had always held at his house, he allowed us that first year to do it at his house. And it was amazing for me to be able to witness what someone who can rise above the fray, above the pettiness and discomfort, and do what he felt was best for me and the men, and to not worry about his own heart and his own, angst about everything. And it's an incredible person. And so I'm blessed to have had Dom Starsia in my life, to have inherited a lot of good recruits. He left the cupboards full, not bare, and continue to have him in my life.
I'm assuming that first conversation with him, with some hesitancy on your part, if he's the kind of guy that I know he is, I'm sure he was the one putting you at ease about taking the job too. I would think that would be part of that conversation.
He did a great job with that, Greg. I can remember him when it opened up. I was with Jeff Wagner and Dom Starsia. They were teammates of Brown, and myself. We were up in DC for the Tewaaraton ceremony. And that we were fortunate that year in 2016 to have the winner come from Brown, Dylan Malloy. And so prior to the event, we were meeting at a restaurant, and Dom just, hey, Lars, you should look at that job. And I don't know how much he thought that meant, but that meant the world to me. It sort of like gave me this blanket permission, that you want that job, and it really meant a lot.
Where do you keep your championship ring?
In the office.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep everything in the office. I remember when I first got to Dom's office, it was Dom's office when I walked in. I guess it's my office now after 4 years, but it still feels like Dom's office to me. Right. There's there's 5 national championship trophies on the bookshelf above my desk. And I was like, proverbially and literally, that's a lot of weight up there hanging over me every day. So Dom won 4 of those. The 5th one was from 1972 when Glenn Thiel was the head coach. And so it felt really, really good to be able to add to the weight up there.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We are talking with 2019 national champion coach from Virginia, Lars Tiffany. And before we get into the Lafayette and Central New York and kind of go through the chronology, can you set aside, you were here in Michigan, I think about 7 or 8 years ago to talk to the Coaches Association.
I can remember that. I remember coming, John Danowski was there out there with his wife, if I remember correctly. And I had a lot of fun with him. And yeah, I remember sort of this cavernous gym or area and doing some X's and O's. That was
we're over at Ultimate Sports Center here, which is I'm the secretary of the organization that brought you in. And so the question that was never asked that I wanted to ask you, is there any relationship between Tiffany, your name, and Tiffany out of New York? And I'm sure you get to ask that question a fair amount, but maybe set the record straight. Is there any relationship to you and Tiffany Lamps?
There is. I'm not that crazy uncle that we all need to do the genealogy of your family, but I dabble. And there's a book on the Tiffany family history, and it was authorized and funded and supported by Tiffany Jewelry, the man who started the jewelry store. And obviously he was wildly successful. Yes. And made a lot of money. So he was able to do this history and create all that. And his son was an artist, and his son was the one who does what you now know as Tiffany Lamps. And so how connected am I? I'm not expecting, some sort of big payday coming up in the next couple of years if a great uncle dies, but there's some trees, there's connections there, sort of 3 or 4 times removed.
The question was asked for my mom, because I mentioned to her this morning that I was interviewing you, and she got very bright-eyed because she thought I was talking to somebody about jewelry and lamps. And I said, no, we're actually talking lacrosse. Let's move us back to, you grew up in Lafayette, New York, which is, I guess you'd call it Central New York. We've had kind of a running joke. I lived in Lake Placid for a fair amount of time, and we always thought Lake Placid was upstate, and the guys from the city thought Albany was upstate. So Central New York has produced as many lacrosse players as any part of the country. So what was it like growing up in Lafayette, being in part of, and be really clear that you were also went to school with a lot of the kids in the Onondaga Nation?
That was what a tremendous benefit and advantage that was. The benefit was for me to grow up in a diverse neighborhood in upstate New York, where you're thinking, okay, this is mostly white population. I grew up on a ranch, and but yet Lafayette, New York is tangent to the Onondaga Reserve, and so I didn't think much of it as a young boy having Native friends. Now the Onondaga Nation has their own K through 8th grade school. But some Onondaga boys and girls came over before that. One of my best friends, Joe Solomon, I think he came over in 4th grade. The Lazors came over. And then, for example, Brad Paulus, whose father was a chief, Irving Paulus, Brad he came over, he went through the whole 8th grade at ONS, Onondaga Nation School, and then came over 9th grade. So I was just introduced to this game of lacrosse and many things because of my experiences growing up with the Native people. What was also really cool was to be in a town that was incredible at lacrosse historically. We had this great tradition, because when lacrosse was started in Syracuse, there was only a couple teams and nobody had youth development, right? There was no 1st or 2nd grade lacrosse back in the 60s or 70s. Oh, but sort of at Lafayette there was, because of the Onondaga people playing lacrosse on the reservation in the box and some field lacrosse. So we were decent at football, decent at basketball, but in lacrosse season, Lafayette, Newark, that was our go time.
You were a three-sport athlete at Lafayette, correct?
Yeah. Now, again, it's a small school. We had 400 students in 6 grades. We had 6 grades in one building. And so you kind of had to. You didn't really have a choice. They need you to play all 3 sports if we're going to field teams. But yeah, it was fun to play all 3 of those.
One of the successes in upstate New York, having lived there a little while, is that I would always watch the smaller towns, especially around Cortland and Potsdam and places like that, places like Lafayette. Guys that went away to play in college would come back and be very involved in their community teams and sort of a give back. I'm not saying that they don't do that in other areas, but it wasn't quite as prevalent as it might have been other places, if that makes any sense. And
Right.
Is that fairly true of what you had in in Lafayette?
I did see a lot of that. A lot of people did come back. It's if you've got that, if you're a tough salt, if you can deal with the winters, and it's a great place to live. The winters are tough though. It seems never ending there when you're in March and you're getting ready for your first practice, and all of a sudden you're snow plowing the parking lot to get out there. And I'm not talking one day, I'm talking about like for 3 weeks in. But yeah, there was a lot of people that give back. And I certainly saw that with native and non-native peoples. But with the native people, it's almost, it's not really a choice. I always hesitated to call lacrosse a religion, but I'm the more I've jumped into this and spoken with people, native people, I feel it really is. I mean, it's the spiritual aspect of this game. It's so prevalent and tangible for me now, that to come back and teach the game and coach the game and be around it and give back to what, sort of others gave to you, and that sort of pay it forward sort of mindset. It's so prevalent and where I grew up, and again, both native and non-native.
And it's obviously stayed with you for a long time, stayed with you for your life. So it's had a great effect on what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I get paid very well. I get paid handsomely to do this, whereas most of the people I was just thinking about are being paid nothing. If not, they're probably losing money going out there and buying goals and trying to find chalk to field the lines. I mean, I line the fields. I mean, how lucky am I? I mean, I get to show up and everyone's got their cleats, everyone's got their sticks. The field's lined, the goals don't have holes in them. And I just coach for 2 hours. So I've been really given a gift here.
That's I think a rather simplistic view of what your process is, but I can appreciate your sentiment. Do you think that the traditional spiritual part of that Onondaga Nation and the way Native Americans look at it is because maybe they have, I don't want to say they have less traditions than we do, but maybe they have a better and a richer feeling for what was than maybe we do, because sometimes we get a little lost as just sort of regular suburbanites?
That's true. They have a better connection to their history, their past. Now, some of that is oppressive, right? Certainly the white man's influence for the last 400 years has been traumatic in so many ways. And I learned some of those stories at Lafayette. Lafayette did a little bit more Native American history than probably most schools did, for obvious reasons. And we learned about some of the atrocities. We learned about atrocities by George Washington. We all love and hold him to such a high level as the first president of this nation, and certainly in one of our finest generals ever. But it also included slaughtering Onondaga people, and so I think the Onondaga people, their history here runs so rampant that when they do their genealogical searches, like we were joking about with the Tiffany's, they don't have to cross any oceans. It's right here, and they can see the lands. They're the same that their people have been running upon and playing this game of lacrosse for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they're really, really strong connection to who they are. But it's amazing. I don't know if there's another game that's so connected to a people in such a spiritual way. And that's why I feel more comfortable talking about it really as a religion. You think about organized sport, it feels like maybe mid 1800s, you start hearing about first, regattas, first baseball games, first football games, 1860s, but didn't seem like a lot of other organized sports. But this game of lacrosse for hundreds and hundreds of years before that, the connection they have with their people, with their ancestry, and via this conduit of lacrosse, does let them really understand their stories, the stories of the creator, and why they play the game.
I think of maybe the Scots in golf as maybe a comparison, because if you can figure golf goes back to maybe 1400, 1500. So there's certainly some comparisons. And I also think in my office, I have a picture of the Indians in Fort Michilimackinac, which is up here at Mackinac Island, where they actually invaded the fort and used the game to overrun. And I still have the picture, one of the original lithographs that's sitting in my office. And it's a reminder every day of watching that and being a part of it. Even the follow-up, before we move on with this interview, but even the follow-up of not even having, as a nation, being able to go, as a lacrosse nation, being able to go across various places and can't get visas to play internationally. So they're still facing, even today, they're still facing some setbacks as it relates to lacrosse, which I find.
I love that you brought up that story as at the invasion of Fort Mishawaka. The distraction, right? They played a lacrosse game to distract the guards, and who were supposed to be taking care of the gates. And bang, invasion. Has been used and evolved and changed. It's incredible. But yeah, the Native people, the Onondaga, the Iroquois national lacrosse team representing the Native people. I'm fortunate to be a part of that. I was an assistant coach under Mark Burnham, and I was lucky that he asked me to be a part of that in 2018 in Israel. It was what a joy to be with Native players and Native people for 2.5 weeks with the game of lacrosse, but just to be with them anyways. There's certainly a ferocity and tenacity with the way they compete. But boy, a gentleness off the field and a fun, easygoing, happy, quick to laugh persona and characters. I've been just really lucky to get to know that group of people, and that Mark Burnham brought me in and to be a part of that. It was, also kind of cool is, in the international stage, the Iroquois Nationals are the rock stars. Like when we showed up for a game, it was like everyone wanted to trade with the Iroquois guys for t-shirts and shorts, right? That was the hot ticket item. So I came home with some really cool stuff, Peru lacrosse, Italy lacrosse, all sorts of different nations, because what I had was premier goods.
2006, they had the World Championships right here in London, Ontario. And Nike put out some stuff for the Iroquois. I still have a bunch of sweatshirts I will show up in once in a while and have some fun with it. So obviously that experience for you has been a lifelong, it's left an indelible mark.
It is. And obviously we all witnessed from afar 2010 when they were not allowed into England. And then in 2018, we got a little bit of a scare. We were in Toronto at the airport ready to fly. And then there were some last second reservations and some background and some checks. Like the passport issue had been solved. Israel was going to accept the passports. The last second concern is Canada going to take this group back in 2 weeks? Right. And so Israel wanted like a signed affidavit letter from Trudeau, the PM, like, you got to guarantee you're taking these guys back. And so that took 2 days. So we finally did get there.
Well, it sounds like you had a great high school career and a great opportunity. Somewhere along the line, you got involved in Brown. Did you want to go be a teacher? Is that kind of what the process was?
Yeah. Again, I think I graduated from Brown, say, let's go do something good for the world. Let's do something for others. Let's go teach. I like teaching. And so I was out in California teaching science, 9th grade marine science, and 12th grade marine biology, and coaching football and lacrosse. It was a great job, and really, really enjoyed that. So that was the dream. That was the initial idea, was go off and do that. But always in the back of my mind, I love this coaching thing. But again, like I said earlier, I didn't think the world needed another coach. But then as it just dove into it further and really felt like seeing it at the high school level, the impact, the connections. And then that's, so I started following my dream. And when I left California, when I was 26 years old in 1994, and sort of accidentally fell into college coaching, to tell you the truth. I was looking to get in, But my girlfriend at the time kept bugging the Lemoyne College athletic director, Dick Rockwell, about, hey, can I play on the women's lacrosse team? He's like, no, they just turned varsity. You have to be an undergrad. She's like, can I help coach? And Dick Rockwell's like, well, okay, when we hire a head coach, we'll say that you want to be, that you could be part of the staff, possibly. You could be a candidate at least. Well, after about 3 months of harassing Dick Rockwell and getting nowhere, because Dick Rockwell didn't have a head coach yet, he finally looked at my girlfriend. It was this 23-year-old Santa Barbara girl, and said, will you be the coach? She's like, oh my God, she's the head coach. So she came as far as you help me coach this Division II women's lacrosse team at Lemoyne. And that's how the college coaching career started in Syracuse, New York, at Lemoyne College, coaching women.
I want to come back to Brown and Pebble Beach, which is where Stevenson School was. But my question is, inside baseball, you played defense at Brown, and Jamie Monroe was one of your classmates, one of your teammates.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Jamie in college, and obviously we know Jamie to be the offensive genius that he is. Was it give and take? Was Jamie that kind of an offensive guy in college?
He's very good. He was very good. Yeah, we were fortunate. We were captains together in 1989. And Jamie, guarding Jamie, playing against Jamie in practice, not only does he have the size, a good, strong attackman who liked physical play. He liked banging into me as a defender. But he had the slickness. Jamie Monroe was scoring goals like I wasn't seeing anyone else do. And what I mean by that is he was coming up with some, deception. He would come up to the 5-and-5, especially he'd come around left-handed. He was a lefty. He'd get to the 5-and-5, and not once, but I saw him do this multiple times, do this backhand fake shot. And sometimes the defender would bite on it right away and turn, and then Jamie would run around him and shoot and score. But I can remember this one time, I think we were at Cornell. The defender has obviously been well scouted. It's like, okay, don't bite on this. Well, Jamie does the backhanded shot fake, little grunt, like, huh! And then what he did after that was what really sold it. He put his stick down like he didn't have it, and then kind of looked around the defenseman like he's looking for the ball, like where the shot went. And the defenseman's like, I'm not biting on this. I'm not biting on this. And then he finally turned around and Jamie ran around him and scored. So I could throw Jamie a clearing pass 60 yards from one end to the other if his defenseman wasn't looking at me, because Jamie knew he would just stand there. The ball's in the air coming to him. He would just stand there, and right at the last second, put his stick out. So if the defender didn't know the ball was in the air, Jamie wouldn't give it away by moving. So
okay.
Really, really slick, smart, intuitive player from an individual perspective. And you see that with his programming he did for many, many years with 3D and now what he's doing online with his teaching. But then he's really become more savvy with the two-man game and what he's done with the bigger picture too. So he's, man, I don't know if I know anyone who loves lacrosse more than him. Like, he is the mad scientist.
And in a lot of ways, he's ahead of us a few years. I think most of us. I think he's ahead of us.
Yeah, I'm running a Division I lacrosse program, and he's constantly calling me and throwing ideas at me. I'm like, wow, I haven't thought of that, And I'm supposed to be at like the epicenter of what do I do all day, right? And obviously some recruiting and some paperwork, but we're thinking about this game, and innovative, trying to come up with new ways to beat the opponent.
Right.
And he's a couple years ahead of us.
Well, I want to get back to a couple of questions. You go from Brown to the connection to Pebble Beach. Is that any relationship to the fact your girlfriend was from Santa Barbara?
I met her while I was out there, so that was just dumb luck. I graduated when I'm leaving Brown. I said, I'd love to live in Colorado or on the beaches of California. I wonder if I can find a teaching job, near the ocean or in the mountains. And I got a lot of turned down letters, but I got one. And Robert Louis Stevens School in Pebble Beach in Monterey had an opening, and boy, that was really, really lucky, huh?
In 1989, it was expensive. I lived in Huntington Beach. It was the same kind of thing. In my 30s, I ended up from New York out to California, but we went up to play Pebble. I remember probably 81 or 82. You could play it for 50 or 60 bucks. Now I think it's $700 or $800 to play Pebble. I don't think there's a better town in America. Maybe Santa Barbara, but gosh almighty, if Monterey is not the best place to live in the world, I'm not sure where there is. It is so cool to live in Monterey.
I know. And I was 26 after 4 years and just feeling like life is really good here, but there's something else out there for me.
Okay.
And it was almost felt like life is too good. Can't be this cushy. It is an amazing place. For those who've been, it. For those who haven't been, you got to put it on the bucket list, especially if you're a golfer, because obviously you've got Cypress, you've got Spyglass, Pebble Beach, incredible courses.
Well, Del Monte, just that right by the hotel there. Now you went back to Central New York from.
Yeah, that was kind of an accident. My girlfriend and I, she graduated from UC Santa Barbara in '93. And so in '94, she moved up. We were hanging out, living in Monterey, and I was finishing up teaching. And then I said, like I was saying, it was time there's something else out there. And we had a great summer of '94. We camped and hiked and backpacked all through the Rockies, got as far south as Taos, New Mexico, got as far north as Canada, got up to Calgary. And we probably stayed in a motel or hotel 3 or 4 nights out of those 2 months. We went to the Vail Lacrosse tournament, and that was part of the thing we did. One of the things we did, but we slept in tents that week, and we just had an incredible trip. And literally, I'm telling you, we had no exact destination in mind. Had this college coaching thing, I was like, I think I want to pursue this, but I don't know. Let's travel. Let's go places. Let's see the world. And so you're like, and you ended up in Syracuse. And I think what happened was she wanted to be a physician assistant. PAs was sort of I remember being a new position in the medical field at that time, and she wanted to go to PA school. I was thinking about coaching, but I was also thinking about maybe this veterinarian concept. That was also something I was toying with. So I was like, it'd be a lot cheaper if we go to Lemoyne. They've got this PA program, and I can take some organic chemistry, physics, and microbiology, some things I needed to do, like almost a post-bac year when people want to go to med school. I needed to do a couple courses if I was going to try to get into Cornell vet school. And then we started coaching together, and all of a sudden the passion, the fun, and I was like, I don't think I'm applying to vet school anymore.
All right. Now my question as it relates to, I want to say this right. Lemoyne, am I saying it right?
Yes, Lemoyne.
You took over, you started coaching women's lacrosse. And I say this because I spent 9 years at Michigan State as the club women's lacrosse coach.
Oh, there you go.
I'm a state graduate and was asked to come in and take over a program that was struggling. And there was some talk that they were trying to figure out if they could make it a varsity program. And maybe I had some organizational skills, and I'd raised a lot of money for the university. I'm a Spartan, but I remember thinking there was nothing I couldn't do. I didn't have a sister, nor did I have a daughter, but there's no reason I can't coach. I coached boys for 30 years and I coach other sports. The first 6 months, and I've said this more than once on the interviews, I would go home in my car and cry. And I thought I knew the guys' game. My first reaction was somebody on a scrimmage, the very first scrimmage, somebody drops their stick on the ground. And I said to the young lady as an attack, pick it up. She goes, that marks my spot. And I made some comment about what a stupid sport this was and got a yellow card, because you can't have those kinds of conversations. So my question to you is, having been on the inside of things, did you see that there was not going to be a translation problem in terms of offense and defense? Is it more than catching and passing?
Yeah, it's interesting when I think about that spring of '95, my first season coaching college sports and coaching the women of Lemoyne. Probably to a fault, I didn't have high expectations. It was a relatively brand new program. I think they'd been in varsity for 1 year and obviously couldn't find a coach the second year. So they had to look at D&I. And I was like, just sort of lowered the expectations probably too much, because what I found were, women that really wanted to compete and get better. And we had so much fun with them. But it's, we won some games. We went 8-3. I tell a story. I can remember we lost to Oswego, Lemoyne at Oswego, and Oswego was a better program, and they thumped us. And for me in my new coaching career here, this was a big game, and we got beat up pretty bad. And so the game ends, and as many of you listeners who are doing all the legwork of making sure the goals are there, making sure the kids have their sticks and all that. You're used to driving the vans. That's what we were doing at Lemoyne. So, D grabbed one van with the girls. I grabbed the other girls in the other van. And about 5 minutes on the way home, an hour drive, maybe at the most, one of the women says, can we turn the music on? And I'm sort of this old school, like, yeah, we're not supposed to have fun. We lost. And I'm like, okay. Within another 5 minutes, they're all singing to the radio. And there was an aha moment for me. And I still carry it with me today. Like, the game's over. And I'm not going to brood over it. I'm not going to like not talk to anybody. I'm not going to be Debbie down or negative. I may not sleep that night. Don't get me wrong. I don't sleep well after games, win or lose, but especially after losses. But in that moment, let's take what we got, and the women wanted to sing. All right, we're singing. And I remember when we got back, my bus was having a lot more fun, or my van was having a lot more fun than Dee's van was having. And so that was one of those aha moments I pulled from that. Yeah. The other aha moment was that after the first game we played, Coach Tiffany would not go in the locker room anymore because we made sure, okay, we're going to be careful here. Okay, good. Well, post game, maybe there's a lot of other things going on because this one woman just starts changing in front of me while I was talking. I was like trying to recap what we were doing on defense, and she's just disrobing. I was like, okay, that's it. I turned around. All right, Coach Tiffany won't come in the locker room anymore. We'll do the team talks outside the locker room.
Well, my very first year, we decided to get the girls. We wanted to make sure Nike was Michigan State's a Nike school. So I'm ordering shorts. And so men's seams or inseams are 9-inch and the shorter ones are 7-inch. And I ended up getting the 7-inch. And so we're going to come out for our first practice. And I'm a believer that if you look the part, you play the part. And the girls wouldn't come out of the locker room. They wouldn't come out of the locker room. And finally one walked out of the locker room. And again, having never had a daughter nor a sister, they looked like they had culottes on. They looked like they were, like an Amish team coming out of the locker room. So obviously, I said, you guys can buy the shorts you want. And they eventually got shorts that fit them, not ones that look like these giant culottes. But our first trip away was to the Santa Barbara shootout of all things, and one of the young ladies had gone to the beach and got a bunch of rocks, and she painted a little rock that just white, put an S on one side, and she put my first name on the back. That's 11 or 12, 13 years ago. I still carry the sucker in my backpack. And having spent that time with them, your point of the aha moment is it changes you in a variety of ways you would never expect. And having not that much experience. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me as a coach. And I think you probably had that same aha moment you're talking about.
Yeah. It was just like, wow.
Yeah.
They are that other half of the species, the ones without the Y chromosome, are so much smarter emotionally about some things. And it's like, it was really good for me. And yet they were super competitive, but then the game ended, and it's time to move on. And it was just, they allowed me to understand, like, we can be competitive, but also move on and work, focus on other things. And I was like, yeah, that's a much better way to get prepared for the next opponent. Right.
Now, having that aha moment, you get to go to work for, I believe, Jim Stagnata at Washington and Lee. Am I correct?
Yeah. Jim Stagnita. He, that was an aha moment. There's no question. That was a gift for me. I mean, I have a gift of growing up with the Native Americans and the game of lacrosse and learning about how this game should be played at pace as you try to build men and warriors. And that's not done by slowing the ball down. That's playing a frenetic, intense skill style of lacrosse. But the other gift I've been given on this planet was spending 2 years with Jim Stagnita in Lexington, Virginia, actually not far from here, only an hour from Charlottesville. And I don't have to tell you how good of a coach he is. All he's done is win. I mean, that's all he's doing at the professional level. He just keeps winning championships. He was very successful at WNL, and he's a great coach. So for 2 years, I quickly realized I still have this 3-ring binder that's thick with plays and schemes and ideas that within about a week, I'm like, oh my God, I've never thought of any of this. And he has really analyzed the game to a level I hadn't been exposed to at that point. And he was ahead of most coaches. And so, yeah, that was incredible. That was 2 years of that was like a master's degree in lacrosse, or maybe even, I should say, a PhD, but I didn't have a master's yet. So maybe I got both at the same time. But I learned so much lacrosse from that man. And and again, like I say, he's proving it still.
Stops at Dartmouth or stops at Penn State. You end up finally getting your first head job at Stony Brook.
Yeah. I
You will.
I left Penn State with tears in my eyes. I remember begging. I was like, Glenn, if you tell me you've got only one more year here, Glenn Field, I'll stay. I loved Happy Valley. I loved Penn State. And he's like, Lars, I got 3 or 4 more years. I'm like, okay, I'm going. And so I left my house crying and got to Stony Brook and was thrilled about that opportunity, though. I mean, I was not leaving Penn State for anything. And how lucky am I as a first-time head coach?
Right.
To be at such a competitive program. I mean, how often do you get that type of opportunity?
Great stadium.
Great stadium. And you're in the center. At the time, there was, I think, 92 high schools played lacrosse on Long Island. And we're sort of right in the middle of it. And so we've got access to incredible talent and incredible lacrosse players and tough lacrosse players. And we've got we've got the facilities and we've got a reputation. There's a decent tradition.
A good academic school.
It's a very good academic school, especially in the math and sciences. What it lacks is the sort of the college setting feel on the weekends, because there's quite a few commuters. Yeah. But outside of that, we were able to do some damage recruiting Canadians and Long Islanders, and that was, it was tough to get guys from other states to not go to their state school to come to our state school, and to come out to Long Island, but we got a few, but it was really like focusing on Long Island and a couple Canadians, and you can be very good. And you're seeing, Gallardi, Coach Gallardi, has been there a year now, and he's had some success early on. So just, really lucky for the first head job to be a place where you can be competitive and win right away. And I inherited some really good talent there. Jason Capadora out of Marksbury, Brendan Callahan, who's the head coach now at Dartmouth. He was the goalie. Errol Wilson was we had some really, really good talent. And I can remember we beat Delaware, we beat Rutgers. We lost to Army. It was number 5 in the country in overtime. I was like, wow, how lucky. I inherited a lot of talent here. This is awesome. And so that was great to spend 2 years on Long Island. Plus, what was even more important for me long-term was to get to know Long Island coaches, to get to know the Long Island culture. It's a different world, right? And I probably shouldn't use mafia analogies, but I'm not sure I'm a made man for having coached at Stony Brook for 2 years, but I got a little closer in the inner circle, and obviously that's a really important inner circle to be a part of.
I have alluded to more than once that Long Island attackmen are different than attackmen from any else place in the country. Yes. And unless you're from Long Island, you don't get that. I coach ski racing in the winter, and there's a few terms for slalom racers that you come from certain areas, you just have a step up on folks that don't have it. And you mentioned that the campus was not everything on Long Island is terrific looking. Everything close to the beach is, but yeah, Stony Brook is in such a beautiful forest kind of area, and it's really it doesn't look like anything you would expect. And that's why when you make that comment, I find it interesting because it's such a beautiful campus.
It is a beautiful campus, a beautiful area. There's a lot of commuters there.
Okay.
There's a lot of people are transient. And so we were trying to find ourselves if we could get recruits to visit on Thursday night when the dorms were full. Usually had to come on the weekends though, but on the weekends, it felt like our guys were doing more of the recruits near campus, but not on campus.
You were Coach of the Year in 2005 American East, which kind of started maybe giving everybody the idea that you had some ideas of what you're doing. Not that they didn't know before that. You end up at Brown, and you really rebuild the Brown program. 95 and 56 over your career. You get to you win the Ivy League 2008, 10, 15, and 16. So you start some things there. Did you go to Brown with the idea you were going to stay there?
Yes. I think once I really dove into the coaching in 1994, helping out, working with Lemoyne, and starting from there, the objective was I would love to be at my alma mater. God, and then the daydream, like being the head coach there. Oh my goodness, that is a dream come true. And I lived that dream for 10 years. as the head coach there. And it was amazing. It was amazing being in the hub of Brown alumni, Brown lacrosse players. What was my history, because I was a Brown lacrosse player, to be in the hub, right in the center of it all, and connecting alums with current players. And it was like my whole life was Brown lacrosse, and life was incredible. And obviously I inherited some good talent because we won games early.
Right.
And then there was a lull. I didn't get it done those middle years. And then at the end, we were able to, get the right talent, Larkin Kemp, Alec Tullett, Kyler Balestri, obviously Dylan Malloy, Jack Kelly in the goal, Bailey Tills, so many great players we were able to assemble there. And there is nothing better for me, and I would think for others on this planet, than winning lacrosse games for your alma mater. Go ahead. The flip side is also true. There's nothing worse than losing lacrosse games for your alma mater, because it's just a little extra something personal, right? But I'm sorry, I'll let you go ahead.
No, my question was, do you think if you'd have graduated from any other place, would you have been as successful as fast as Brown as you were? Or does that connection matter more than maybe from someplace else? I think it matters a great deal.
I think it matters a great deal. And we've had this discussions. Are there certain schools where it's really important to be an alumnus of that school? It's hard to nail that down. We all like to think that our institutions and our universities are unique,
right?
And so this is a little bit of self-aggrandizing, but Brown is a different place, take everything pass fail, no gen eds, very, very uber liberal, it's to, you have an institution that really values the individual and wants the individual to flourish and not be restricted by anything. And yet as a coach, you're trying to bring all these individuals into as a team, sacrifice for the team. So, I always joke about that when I was, maybe talking to Joe Alberici at West Point, his university's mission is his athletic department's mission is his team's mission, and for us, it was a little different at Brown. So, but I do think it really helped. And you saw that Dom Starzer, Brown alum, then Pete Lasagna took over for him as the head coach at Brown alum. And, so I was able to follow in that footstep. So I do think it really helped being an alum to having success early there, to understanding what their daily lives are like. And to be honest with you, I think what really helped was I also knew that Brown was manageable. I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. I went to Brown. I graduated with over a 3.0. So I wasn't taking these guys, oh, coach, it's so hard here. No. Get your work done and get to practice. Let's go.
How important to Brown athletics was getting to the Final Four? Because now you're talking about a Division I program getting to the promised land in a high market ABC kind of way that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise in other sports. And then the follow-up, would you have gotten to Virginia with not getting to the Final Four in 2016?
Oh, wow. Get right to the heart of the matter. It was a big deal to get Brown to the Final Four because the Final Four is really where you've made a statement. You've made it. You got to win 2 games to get there. You've got to overcome some great challenges in competition. And so we were able to realize that through again, some great lacrosse players. And I was really fortunate to have Kip Turner and Sean Kerwin on the staff, who that we brought to Virginia, and kept the staff together. And so I think that was big in defining to get to the Final Four, no question about it. And boy, what a joy that was. And again, as I was alluding to earlier, it was like, could I be any luckier? Could my life be any better? The alma mater, the team I played for, is and all the alums and so many of my friends are Brown lacrosse related. Here we are going to Philadelphia. And as painful as it was to lose in overtime to Maryland, but just, I look back with such great pride and thinking about all those men who gave everything they had. That's a good question with the other part of it. If Dom Starge is let go in 2016 and Brown isn't in the Final Four, I do think it's fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. You know, if Brown had been maybe to the Final Four in 2012 or 13, and Dom leaves in 16, but Brown's been only average for 3 years, you know, I think I was lucky. You know,
I asked, I asked the question because you and I could both come up with a list of 5 or 6 schools where, whether you're an alumnus or not, those are just the most 5 or 6 coveted jobs in America. But that list is pretty short if you're leaving your alma mater.
Virginia, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I was.
Virginia would be one of those places.
Yeah, I'll actually give you a little bit more insight. In 2010, I was offered a job, an opportunity to leave Brown and to take a job somewhere else, a really good job, and I struggled with it. I really emotionally struggled with it because it was a place that I thought very fondly of, and has proven you can win lacrosse games there. But I was like, I'm going to turn my back on my alma mater. I mean, I spent my whole life wanting this job, right, to be coach at Brown. And eventually I obviously chose to stay at Brown. And that was a really good thing. And I'm really glad I did. But the experience, it helped me to analyze myself emotionally, to say, okay, Lars, you're staying and we're happy. This is a good thing. And I moved on after that, and I was able to emotionally put it behind me. But what I did sell myself there in the fall of 2010, we're not leaving unless, and it was 2 jobs, and one of those was Virginia. So to get to your point, you sniffed that out well, Greg, that there was, and I created this hit list of 2, and the other one was Syracuse because I grew up there, and what are the odds that one of those happens to jump and be available and so, but what it did, it helped take what could be a very emotional decision. It took a lot of that out of it and made it more transactional, which is what I needed, because it was really hard emotionally to say goodbye to Providence, Rhode Island, to say goodbye to the alumni base, and say goodbye to the men. Most importantly, the men I recruited. Most of the men who I probably told, if they asked, "Are you ever thinking about leaving Brown?" I said, "No. This is my job. I'm an alum here. I'm not leaving." Right. And to say, you know what, I am leaving now. That was really hard, but that experience in 2010 helped me, sort of cut that emotional tie a little bit more so and just move forward.
I'm not a psychologist, but having grown up in the central New York area where orange was the major color, I think that the 2 teams that you had on your hit list both have orange and blue in their color schemes. There has to be some correlation to that, or maybe just the fact that Syracuse and Virginia are 2 of the most renowned programs that have ever played the game. That probably has a little more to do with it than color.
Yeah, probably a little more than the color, but I mean, how lucky am I? I mean, I'm sitting there picking a hit list of Syracuse and Virginia. It's like, come on, of course everyone wants to coach at Syracuse and Virginia, and to have one of those opportunities come forward. And what's amazing is to think about those 2 schools, the history of the 2 teams against each other. What a rivalry there's been. And I still pinch myself, Greg, on those games. I'm like, well, I'm involved with the Syracuse Virginia lacrosse game, and if you look at the stats, I know they're well documented about how the series is, 17 wins here, 17 wins there, whatever it is. The number of goals scored is within like 1, if not tied. The number of 1-goal games. It's amazing. What's that rivalry?
I had a chance to ask Kevin Corrigan once the question. I said, how long has the Notre Dame job been, sort of one of those coveted jobs? He says, it's the day I was hired. It wasn't worthy before I got here. And he says he's turned it into something special. And I don't think there's any doubt about that, but you're kind of home now, aren't you? At 52, does this become the velvet coffin to some extent?
Yeah. I mean, this is an incredible place to live. I'm fortunate. JP Williamson and Sean Stalford, 2 Brown lacrosse teammates and really good friends of mine, grew up in Charlottesville and have moved their families back to Charlottesville and lived their lives here. So I had a red carpet when I landed with JP and Sean, and it's an athletic department that is committed to winning. And as you saw with Tony Bennett winning a national championship, Bronco Mendenhall taking a football team to the Orange Bowl last year, so many other programs are so successful. It's it's good living here too. I will admit, the winters are a little softer. Coaching in the spring, I was always so jealous watching those ACC games on TV in March, where I've just gotten rid of like the third or fourth layer in the parka, after a Brown lacrosse game, and sitting down and watching, Dom Starger or Joe Bresci in a short sleeve polo on the sidelines. It's what a treat.
You had great success at Virginia. What's the retail value of winning a national championship to a coach? Is there retail value for you, having now got the ring?
It's as the Virginia lacrosse coach, recruiting is never going to be a chore. It's exciting because we get to go after the best, the most talented, both academically driven and motivated and good people. We never have to sacrifice some of the character issues that maybe some other schools do to get talent. We don't have to sacrifice academic issues to get talent. And I will then build up on what I'm saying by what you were asking about, Greg, is that I can remember before winning a national title, how the responses were really good from recruits. Let's say on September 1, the first day to reach out to them. Yeah. And it was different from Brown. I could feel a difference there. Well, now I can see a difference from being a 2017-18 recruiter for Virginia versus being a post-2019 championship recruiter. And it's not like all of a sudden, instead of 15 out of 20 guys saying, "Coach, I can't wait to talk." Yeah, the number is probably more like 18 out of 20. I can't wait to talk. But now I get exclamation points at the end. I can't wait to talk! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I'm like, ooh, I got exclamation points. So to put a retail value, I count those in exclamation points on text messages.
I asked the question because in your head, you're still the same guy for the championship that you are now. But the perception outside your front door isn't the same perception. And I think that's something you have to recognize.
True. Something we talk a lot about. We do these weekly meetings during the spring and almost weekly in the fall. We call them Cultural Thursdays, and we guide our discussions on books. So we spend 35 to 40 minutes each week essentially talking about values, about guiding through these books and how it's going to change who we are into a better team, better teammates. And one of the first books we did was James Kerr's Legacy, the New Zealand All Blacks, their professional rugby team, as the source of, as a centerpiece of it. And I remember that has a chapter on pressure, and we've talked about pressure since then. And, so for example, now that we've won a national title, the view from the outside is different. And can we maintain what we've been doing the same on the inside? I don't know if you can. I think I tried last year. Hey, let's just treat this next year like any other year. The 2020 season. And I probably tried too hard. Like, I don't think I celebrated enough, not celebrated, but acknowledged enough of what we had done with the team. I kept saying, hey, last year's done. Get it over, behind us. Let's go forward. And that sounded right. That sounded right to me. Felt good. But I think I made it too strict. Like, we can never talk about last year. And so I was like, now I've got to, how lucky am I? We get to do a redo, because 2020 barely happened. Right. We get to do a redo on coming back as defending, in a sense. And so we get to now, really do it again. And so I want to embrace the championship a little bit more. I want to embrace the pressure, to really getting back to your question, embracing that idea that this is a privilege to have pressure, that we value, that it's exciting to have that pressure, and we have to value it, because we can no longer beat our chests and, in front of the camera. No one believed in us, which you see all the time. It drives me nuts. You see professional athletes on a team that was probably a favorite to win the football game. Nobody believed in us. And it's such an easier sort of mindset to create and go with and roll with, right? Everyone likes the underdog role. Oh, the pressure's on the other guy. Well, you don't get to say that as the University of Virginia as a lacrosse player, so we have to embrace that pressure and make it our friend. And so we're working through that on those Cultural Thursdays through some readings. And I'm not sure we've nailed it, but we're trying.
I coached high school for a bunch of years, and then I switched to a parochial school. And in my second year, we're in the state finals. And now I'm a genius coach. Even though I had winning records at the public schools, I wasn't a better coach. I had better athletes. It has a lot to do with the success that one has. And I think that's the step up you get when you move up the ladder. Does that make sense?
It's everything. It's everything. It's all the talent, you know, and I think about how lucky I was at every step I've taken, that there was a lot of talent there, that someone had done a really good job recruiting. And to follow Dom Starsia, you know, there's going to be athletes and competitors on that field. And, you know, and Scott Nelson, though he struggled those last couple of years, he had done a really nice job his last couple of years recruiting. And so Thomas Muldoon and Jordan Burke, so they were the two of the top guys, and just really, really having that talent. It's what it's all about. You know, I can remember Dom Starsia, you know, I allude to him often, I know, but talking to him about coaching philosophy one day, and you know, drawing up some plays, because we hadn't done a ton of plays. When I played for Dom, we were not, you know, encumbered and weighed down with a lot of X's and O's and schemes and invert zone defenses and all that stuff, which was great as a player. We were allowed freedom to play. But you know, from Stagnita, I learned a lot of X's and O's, and Dom, I remember one day, it's like, Lars, you can X and O me to death. I'm going to run you over with my athletes. And that was his way of saying, don't lose sight of the recruiting. These plays are good. It's nice. These can be helpful, but don't you lose sight of who you're putting on the field.
I've never been a fan of the sort of the big game speech, because, you know, the kid you got playing right guard is 5'6", 150 pounds, and he's playing across from an All-American who's 6'4", 260. Coach says to him, get tough. Well, to me, tough is fighting cancer. Tough is not necessarily playing somebody who's bigger, stronger, faster than you with you know, there's some things you can control. There's some things you can't. To wrap this up, I do have to ask one. I've had one question I've asked all the coaches, and we haven't talked a lot about the lacrosse because it's been such a delightful conversation. But one question, athleticism, and I know you're at Virginia, but athleticism over IQ, everything being equal, of course, we want to be bigger, faster, stronger. But if you have your choice between, you know, there's a little more physicality or a little more IQ, what do you pick for the way you coach?
Ooh, I know. That's a great question. I'm not even sure I'm going to answer it straight. I've gone through that question over 20, 25 years. I can remember when I was a younger coach, confident. I was like, just give me an athlete. I'll teach him the game. And I've learned over the years that's not necessarily true. Some guys are just really slick and savvy, and they don't necessarily have to be from Baltimore and Long Island. I've had Parker Brown was from San Francisco, one of the smartest players I've ever coached. And that IQ is so invaluable. Understanding all those things. You know, it's that defenseman who knows how to run shots out, who knows not to give up the second slide and covers a crease, and knows when to run the shot out. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 possessions a game is yours because he beat the guy to the end line. God, it's so important. And it's what's hard to assess on the sidelines, sitting in a lawn chair in July, overheating. You know, it's like you can just see the big, beautiful runner, but can you see the intelligence or hear that? That's the tricky. So I'm going to answer it without answering. My first year, I will tell you, my first year here in Virginia. So it's 2017. Sean, Kip, and I we're doing okay. We're not winning a ton of games, but you know, we had a good win over, you know, but we're struggling in some other games. And I just had a roster and thinking, okay, what do we need to do to the next level? And I can remember thinking, you know, we're big. Maybe we're too big. I think we need some more speed. You know, I think we need to be quicker and faster. I think we've sacrificed that for size. So maybe we can get rid of some size and get faster. And then late in the year, we played the 2 Carolina teams in the ACC, North Carolina and Duke. And I remember coming home going, okay, we need big and fast. Oh yeah, and we need smart too. Okay, we need all those. So that's how I'm going to answer your question. You know, with our schedule, you know, playing the Dukes and Carolinas and Syracuse's and Notre Dame's and the others, I don't know. I have to be greedy. I need it all. But I will admit I've evolved and recognized that no matter how good Sean Kerwin is, and then how much I think we're drilling ideas into our men's heads with our coaching, boy, that guy with that lacrosse IQ, it's invaluable. So we really are starting to look more and more for that.
I'm not a big speech guy or a big sign guy, but in my office, there's a sign that says big beats small, fast beats slow, and big and fast beats everybody. And I think there's a certain truth to that premise. So listen, great coaches have great opportunities, and great coaches are great for a reason. And I think we've learned that about you, Lars, the last hour. It's been a really terrific conversation. I can't tell you how much I've appreciated it. We've had the really good fortune to talk to some unbelievable men as head coaches, and this hour was it's just I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. So from us and from everything else, we understand why you're successful, and I really do appreciate you spending an hour with us.
Yeah, well, Greg, thanks for making me comfortable with that backdrop, on the Zoom call here, and I love it. Let's put all the best players in Michigan with that right on their chest, and this is really fun. Again, you made this easy. You allowed me to talk about my life story. Most people like talking about their past. So thank you for this, and thank you.
Have a great when they get back to January. Have a great season, and I will certainly send you something along the lines to make sure that you know where this is, so you can at least watch it. So, Lars, this has been terrific, and again, you were here a few years ago, and we loved you then, and we love you now. So thanks again.
All right, thanks, Greg.